We're gonna take the devil's kingdom down. Oh, what he said was he has been ours all along. We're gonna take the devil's kingdom down. Church, we've been deceived by the devil too long. We're gonna take the devil's kingdom down. Oh, what he said was he has been ours all along. We're gonna take the devil's kingdom down. Hey, Facebook fans, friends, and generations to come. The goal and the vision for the page is a deeper knowledge of God's word and a greater conformity to his character and nature. A deep, personal, intimate relationship with the Lord that's characterized by love, trust, and a strong desire to know him that goes beyond religious practices. Superior levels of transformation with notable results. Daily, putting our life in God's hand and prioritizing his will above our own. Living every day in obedience to God's voice and his word, having a word compliant mentality. What is all this saying? This is saying that we imitate God in our character and our conduct and our attitudes and our actions. We look less and less like ourselves and more like our dad. We are transformed. We do not conform to the world, but we are transformed by the renewing of our mind. I'm just, today my cousin is laying her grandmother to rest. So I'm praying for them today because she was a beautiful lady. I mean, if you came from our town, Bouville, I'm pretty sure with some way, shape, or form, you know Aunt Bernadette, Aunt Bern. So you had some kind of experience or interaction there. I remember many and many times going to her house, and the pavement right in front of her house, and the trees with their little pink flowers on it. You know, and I just want to lift up my cousin Raquel and little Ricky and all my family, my Uncle Ricky, everybody, because we're connected. We're connected. So I'm lifting them up in prayer today and telling them that I love them. Hallelujah. So I'm just going to talk a little bit today, and then I'm going to go into the thing. Yesterday, I went to see my biological dad, which I really, really enjoyed. And as I think about it, I'm 45 now. I've been raised in the house with my stepfather my whole life. So that's the only, um, like, that's the person I know. And taking nothing away from him because he's been a great dad to me. But we're going to talk about the other part. As a 45-year-old woman, right, trying to get to know my biological father has been challenging, especially as an adult, because we're two strangers. And then, and I'm not blaming him or my mom. So we're not playing blame. I'm just saying from a child's point of view, you know. And then I have my child and his father with the same kind of relationship. And I'm just want to encourage fathers today, or parents, not just fathers, parents that are disconnected from their children, to understand that sometimes we have to get out of ourselves to save a relationship with a child. Me sitting with my dad yesterday was not, it was a beautiful moment because I haven't seen him in forever, and he's been going through issues, and and not only do, because we never had a relationship, have I missed out on knowing him. I missed out on knowing any side of his family, and no matter who fault it is, no, we can blame, mamas can blame dads, dads can blame moms, but at the end of the day, the child has suffered a great loss. Even in my situation with my son doesn't, he knows his father, but not connected to him. And I always leave it open for my son to say, like, hey, listen, I think it would be beneficial that, when the time's right, that you be open to a relationship if that's what he wants. But to the parent, and if you don't have a child, I think it's, especially if you don't have a child that, or because some people don't have children, but they raise they help raise other people's children. So it's a different bond. As parents, I think that we put a lot of our hurts, a lot of our trauma, and then we don't know how to reconcile the relationship with accountability. Like, hey, this is not your fault. This is, we can blame your mom, but most children that grow up with a parent, regardless of if that parent is, especially if the parent wasn't really bad or something like that, you don't have that many issues with the parent, you're not going to want to hear about your mom, your dad, they did this, they did that, because that child has already established a relationship, a bond with the parent that they're with. And it does a disservice to the child when you dismiss yourself from that child's life, not only because of that child, for that child in your relationship, but that child and their aunts, their uncles, their cousins. There's a side of my family, there's a side of my biological family that I know of, but don't have a relationship with. And that's unfortunate. And just like my child, he knows of his father, and it's nothing that I'm doing. It's nothing on my part. And if it is, I would take accountability and say, I'm sorry for that. But he has a whole side of a family. And not only that they're like that child's missing out, but you're missing out on your child. You're missing out on important events. You're missing out on who they are. What part of you like them? Because we hold such selfish pride, we'll break up relationships. Like I've seen a situation where a parent would rather break up their relationship with their child for money, because I don't like your mom, because me and your mom don't get along, so I'm just going to leave you alone. Or, these things matter. I'm 45. I've known about my biological daddy since I was young. I did not stay in a house where my mom talked about my biological dad, my stepdad talked. I knew of him, but he wasn't just he wasn't part of my life. I passed his house many a times. We lived in the same town. We lived in the same, I have a brother. I have a sister with my mom that was raised with me. So that's the sister you see, and that's the two nephews and nieces that you see all the time. That's my sister. When you ask me, I'm gonna say I have one sister. Even though I have another biological brother and sister, but at the same time, I was raised in a house with that sister, and that's my niece and nephew. And it's unfortunate that we as adults, like my son has two brothers and a sister. Me and his brother and sister mom do talk, or, we don't have no, but I'm talking about as an adult child trying to get to know a parent that wasn't there. As I sat with my dad yesterday, it felt relief, because I honestly just wanted to sit with him. I just wanted to talk to him, not about what happened in the past. And I think that stops a lot of children from, because who wants to always hear about their mom, their dad? I didn't do this because of this. I didn't do that with that. And if you have a relationship with your child or trying to build one, and you don't think it's important to value that relationship, like, hey, listen, no money, no person, nothing. And I was in a situation, I haven't been a perfect parent. It's very known that at one time I had to allow my son to go live with my grandmother for a little while because that was just the best for my son. And even that, as a mom, I had to take accountability for the decisions that I made, right? I couldn't blame my grandmother. I couldn't blame my mom. I couldn't blame my dad. I had to take accountability, and I had to build trust with my son. It looks like my son never left my side because that relationship is established. And if my son comes to me and say, don't, this hurts me, or that hurts me, or I need this, or I need that, or you've done this and it caused me this, I'm not going to say, oh no, it was this. No, because building that relationship and having to have a perspective from that child's point of view, like, hey, listen, you might have never even saw it like that. You might not even think it like that. And I think it's important as parents, because it is Father's Day weekend, right? And as I sat there with my dad, I just think it's unfortunate because I have a whole side of a family that I know of. They know of me. It's not. This not a secret. It's not a secret, right? That know of me that I don't have a bond with. I have cousins. I have a brother. I have another brother. I have niece, a nephew. I have aunts. And when I look at their social media, I see how close they are. I see how much, and I don't, how together there are. And then I go sit with my dad, and it's been a process since we talked and we don't talk, we talk, we don't talk, we talk, we don't talk. Then I have to be careful of how my stepdad feels sometimes, because sometimes we can put our feelings on our children, because our children can feel like, hey, listen, I don't want to make the parent that raised me feels bad. And listen, it should never be a competition. Like when it was with me, my grandmother, and my son, I had to let my son know that, hey, listen, it's okay. You can love more than one person. It's okay. You're not going to love me less, and I'm not going to love you less if you love your dad, if you love your mom. If my son dad wants to be in his life right now, I've reached out to my son dad a million times and say, hey, listen, whatever I did in my, that you may have an excuse to say that this or that, I'm sorry, and I tell Nicholas all the time, and we don't sit here and bash his dad or bash him about his dad. Nothing. We actually don't even bring up it a lot at all. And that's a good thing, because I think that sometimes we put our experiences on the child and expect that child to feel some way about a parent when they're supposed to only be able to feel love. And hey, listen, I shouldn't have to come, like, say, if I love my dad, my mom gonna get mad. If I love my mom, my dad gonna get mad. If I do this with my dad, my mom gonna get mad. If my dad, and as dads and parents, we sometimes are so selfish and self-centered in ourselves that we don't know that everything we do affects our children in the long run. Me, as 45, raised in a house with a mom and a dad. Like I said, my stepdad been in my life since I was 1. He's still in my life. I talk to him every morning. Matter of fact, he's on here right now. Love him to death. Nobody can change that. No person can come and tell me anything about my dad, because he raised me. Every day in the house with him, took care of me. That's when I speak of dad, that's who I'm speaking of. But I do have a biological side that is a missing component of my life. That there's times that I'm missing, like, um how would my life be if I knew my aunts and my cousins on my dad's side? How would things be if I were closer to my brother? And they'd be like, oh, you're 45 right now. It's like meeting a total stranger. You're like, you know what I'm saying? My life has already been established, and there's things that come up. And as parents, we have to understand that we in our hurtness, our ignorance, our unhealedness, our don't have an, we, unless there's abuse, then yeah, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about extremes where you have to keep your child from the father or the mother. We're not talking about that. We're talking about when we're hurt and we want to use the children as pawns, where you have children and you start a whole nother life, and you raising somebody else's children, and you not having a relationship with your own children. That's hurtful. That's just hurtful. When you say, well, I rather this than, and we're looking at it from a parent point. My, I can't put nothing before my son, besides God. Like, I'm not going to say, well, if my son comes to me and be like, hey, mama, I need you to do this. Or if he put an ultimatum, like, hey, listen, this is going to mess up my relationship with you. You either can fix the relationship or you can cause a distance. I'm not going to pick money. I'm not going to pick self. I'm not going to pick you. I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to pick, hey, I want to, because it's not only beneficial to me, because I want the best emotionally healthy child I can have. And as I sat there with my biological dad, and I'm telling you, I didn't even realize how much we talked on the phone. We throughout my life, more as I got older, trying to work through some of this stuff, especially when it comes down to you sitting with one parent, and they got to, and I'm not saying don't go back and speak of the past with adults, because there's things that my mama said, my daddy told me differently, but that shouldn't be the mainly focus, because me and my mom already have a exact same thing. Exact same thing. Um, Me and my mom have a relationship. So therefore, when it came down to it, make it about you and that child. Make there has to be accountability and responsibility. You know, it's hard. It's hard to, you know, I want to know what it's like to have a dad that goes out, you know, and values a child more than they value their pride or their selfish ways or something like that. A dad that really sacrifices, or a mom that really sacrifices. And it's important, because we have a lot of broken children, because we have broken parents and parents that don't know how to take accountability for their actions. And I set up, like, as a 45, I said 35, as a 46-year old, I'm 46, as a 46-year-old adult, I still see where there's gaps. And if I could have had it, I would have want to know or build a relationship from young, not wait till I'm 18, 19, 20, you know, with not only my dad, but his family, my aunts, my cousins, my uncles, or know that side, know that part of me. Maybe I'm more like them. I've only been around my mom, my family, the people that you see on my Facebook. That's the people I'm around all the time. And no, I didn't grow up in a house where my biological dad got bashed. I never grew up in a house where my mom talked bad about my stepdad, my dad, my biological dad, my stepdad didn't talk bad about him. Nobody, he really wasn't mentioned. I knew of him, but I didn't know him. And I had somebody in the house all the time. But that still didn't have a absent, because no matter how close me and my dad, my stepdad is, right? My dad. When I say my dad, I'm talking about my stepdad, y'all. And when I say my dad, I'm talking about the man that raised me since I was one. The only man I knew, the only man that's been in my life for 45 years, 46 years. I only had one dad in my life, my whole life. And that's my dad that come on here every day, Andrew Reels, right? But I'm talking about how even in my son's life, his dad isn't there. And although I tell my son be open, there's going to be gaps, because he's missing out on his grandparents that are real, And I think as parents, we have to also encourage our children to be better than us. Like, hey, we all make mistakes. We all have messed up. And if you don't have no children and your husband have children, or your significant other have children, you now have children, and you're supposed to love those children. You're supposed to build a relationship with bonds with those children, because what we do as adults, we forget that our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, influences. Look at how y'all. Well, and I just want us to remember that. I love you. I love my stepdad, my dad, the man that raised me with all my heart, soul, and mind. I can't not love him, because he's the only dad I know. He's the only dad I know, and that's unfortunate, because, it's not unfortunate like that, but it's unfortunate because I do have a side, and I'm not the only child like this. I'm not the only step child or bonus child that people have. And it doesn't take nothing away. Matter of fact, it makes my stepdad, um, because he raised me as his own. He raised me as his own. He took me in as his own. I don't know nobody, nothing different. I don't have nothing different. I feel like there's nothing. It's just there, right? But I'm talking about the absent parent. What? The absent parent. And I got. She over there cutting up, y'all. She's shaking her head and everything. No, she not. She not. She not. She talked about her coffee. And I just want to encourage us to move past ourselves and reach out and start to even, even if it's just an apology, say, hey, listen, I'm sorry. No blame on nobody else but you. Like, I'm sorry for not being there in your life. And I want to start to build that. And however you want me to build it, I'm going to build it. That's what I'm talking about this morning, because it was just on my mind, because I saw my biological dad yesterday. And it was different than it's usually, because I guess God is opening my heart up in different ways, and just learning to appreciate the relationships that I do have, and also be open to relationships I don't have, because regardless of how we think about it, that person, like my son's dad, father, I can't, that's part of my son. So I don't have nothing bad to say about him. He's part of my son. That makes my son part of him. So I don't want my son to look bad at himself first, because that's a part of him. I want him to know who he is and love who he is and love his father, love his people, love this, love that. That's just me. But we all not there, but I hope we get there. All right, Songs of Solomon. Sit down. For what? She moving. Y'all need some milk? Okay, so here we go. Songs of Solomon. The flowers appear on the earth. The timing of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in the land. The Lord is saying to us this morning, there is beauty in your pain. Your pain has become the birthing ground for the beautiful. Your pain has become the birthing ground for the beautiful. In your greatest devastation, your worship has become a fertile, healthy womb. From the season of sorrow now comes gracious gifts for you to share. Nothing has been overlooked. Now you will see what God will do through you because of what you endure while you were bowed before him in surrender. In your place of your pain, he will pour out beauty. Heartbreaking tears of surrender have made you beautiful. So very beautiful to God. This is the most perfect offering. This is the most perfect offering of your yielded heart. I haven't forgotten one single prayer. God hasn't forgotten one single prayer. He has seen every movement of your heart towards him in your suffering. For every tear, he gave you a seed to sow in someone's life. He has taken your sorrow. He has cleansed your tears with his love. Now he poured these tears back to you as rain on dry soil. Golden rain of a new season where flowers bloom and the air is clean and fresh. Breathe deeply, my love. The season has changed. God, the season of sorrow is over. Not that pain won't come. Not that there's, the Songs of Solomon 2 and 11 through 12. The season has changed. The bondage of your barren winter has ended, and the season of your hiding is over and gone. The rain has soaked the earth and left it bright with blossoming flowers. The season for singing and pruning the vines has arrived. Oh, it's a new season. It's a new season. And in this season, bondage and barren time is over. The barren season is over. The dead things are going, and God is about to soak you with rain. You're going to be singing and pruning the vines. Y'all be blessed. Y'all be safe. And most of all, take the first step. Take the initiative. Look back. Take accountability. Start to reconstruct or start to look over your relationships. Start with your relationship with God. Bring that closer, and everything else is going to start to flow from that relationship. Y'all be blessed.